All right, welcome to the Impartial Skeptic. My name is Mark, and today we're going to be talking about the Gospel of Mark, in particular, Mark 16, whether it's Mark 16 through 8 or Mark 16 through 20. We're going to get to the bottom of that. But I used to argue with a Christian friend of mine back in the day who told me that you should never question the Bible. The Bible is perfect today as it was in the very beginning, which is interesting. Um, he says it's never been altered in any way over the centuries. It's been perfectly uh, s- passed down by the scribes and rewritten by the scribes perfectly. Um, that's more true with the Old Testament, but even that has some issues, usually just smaller ones, but still. Um, and But the New Testament's a little bit different because the Christian scribes weren't quite as literate. A lot of times they weren't very literate at all, but the most literate in the group would be the one who would be the scribe, and which varied from group to group. We know this because we found that errors were uh, rewritten. That somebody had written down an error, and then that error continued to be rewritten that way. So, which tells us that they couldn't really read. So, um, that's how and we also know that things that were in the margins got pulled in and stuff. There's a lot of bunch of different things that happened. Um, but he'd been told by his church pastors and by books he'd read, which were all by Christian apologists. He never knew really anything else. He was always a Christian. He grew up in a Christian household and kind of went away from it for a while. But as a young adult, young adult, which is kind of typical, um, but he wouldn't read any criticisms, and I wouldn't, and I've talked about him a little bit in other stuff, and I wish we were still friends actually, but we ended up he not talking anymore because we didn't agree on some things. Um, Sadly, I find this very typical though among Christians. I've gone to churches and gone to Bible studies and stuff like that, and they don't want to answer your questions. They just, I think a lot of times they're just not trained to also, they're told to just kind of stick with what they know. And if you have any questions, you got to go to the pastor or whatever, and they'll never even answer your questions either. I mean, I'd go to the pastor and they'd say the same thing. It's like, you can't question it. It's like, well, then God shouldn't have made me this way. Damn it. Because that's the way he made me. So anyway, um, my view is whether you're a historian or you're a Christian or just a curious person, I would want to know, and I'm two of these. I used to be three of these at some point, or try to be. I've tried to be a Christian. I could never really wrap my mind around it though. But wouldn't you want to know what the original words were, or the closest thing to the original words? And so, if you're reading off of an earlier document, obviously, and then you read a newer document and they differ, which one are you going to go with? I mean, I'm going to go with the older one because it's like that's a lot closer to where it was said or written in the first place. It's going to be more accurate. It's going to be less um, vulnerable to misinterpretations, errors, things in the margins, or just politics being played, which in our thing today, that's exactly what it was, is what I believe was politics. And this is something that's really known. The Gospel of Mark, the long ending and the short ending. It's well known. This is I'm really kind of picking low fruit here, honestly, because it's pretty well known. But it's a good place to start. I think I say that later on. Or the Gnostic Gospels. So we have a lot of great discoveries over the past couple hundred years, although they haven't really come to public light until even later. So we have the Gnostic Gospels and which are the Nag Hammadi scriptures, and then we have the Dead Sea Scrolls. The Gnostic Gospels were found in 1945. They only became publicly available in 1978. The Dead Sea Scrolls were found in 1946 or 47, probably 47 though. They only became available in 1991 to the general public after decades of restricted access. We have also found or found we also found or found that we already had other fragments um, that had never been looked at before. Like I think P137, which is one of the older pieces of Mark ever found, which doesn't cover what we're talking about today. But that was, I think, already in the um, some British museum or something like that, or college. I can't remember where it was. Where it was, I forget now. I just read it a few minutes ago too. But um, the ones that I'm talking about that are relevant though in this case are like the Codex Vaticanus and the Codex Sinaiticus, both of which contain the oldest versions of the Gospel of Mark and are pretty complete um, for the most part, and both of which are missing Mark 16 9 through 20. Okay, now I know I'm not see. I know I'm picking hanging low hanging fruit with this topic because it's pretty much well known. In fact, my NIV Bible right here, see, it has it right here in the footnotes, but it doesn't have it in the regular text up here. Uh, you know, so it's a well known topic. Um, but it's an important first step in showing the Bible has changed over the years. I mean, this is something that everybody knows. It's acknowledged even by most pastors. So it's like, okay, the Bible did change in this case. Um, so it's an important first step. Um, uh, the Bible's changed often, like I said, in minor ways, but often to match later texts. Sometimes things written in the margins, all that kind of stuff, all the errors. The apostles were most likely illiterate. Certainly, Matthew would have been able to read. He was a tax collector, and the same with Jesus. If he was teaching, um, he would have most certainly probably been able to read the scrolls, the text, Jewish texts. It would be my guess, or maybe they were just all handed down. I don't know, but I would think he would be able to read. Peter and some of the others, no, probably not. They were fishermen, and they would have been illiterate. Um, in fact, John, it even says in the Bible, in the New Testament, that he was illiterate. So um, people think that John wrote the Gospel of John, which is probably one of the more eloquent of the writings um, when it comes to gospel writers. Also, the letters, which are his. Now, Revelations, which is obviously a different person, not as eloquent a writer or in Greek. But John, who wrote the Gospel of John and the letters, is a very eloquent writer, and probably somebody in the second century or late first century, and probably not likely John, the apostle, because the Bible even says that he was illiterate. So all of a sudden he's becomes this eloquent writer. Could have been a miracle. I know. Okay, so I am kind of cherry picking with this one, but like I said, it is kind of an important first step. So anyway, here's how the Gospel of Mark goes. Um, let's see. He is risen. This is 16 1, I guess. Yeah, 16:1. He is risen. That's the title. Now, when the Sabbath was passed, Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James, and Salome brought spices. Now that could be James was Jesus's brother, and Salome was very possibly his sister. So this could be Mary, Saint Mary, but we don't know. for sure, obviously. Mary, the mother of James, and Salome brought spices. Well, see, it would have had to have been, though, because usually it was family members, which makes me wonder about Mary Magdalene, because how would she be able to go bring spices and anoint a naked man's body without being family? Just asking the question. We'll talk about that later on down the road. Okay, so anyway, um, let me start over because I got sidetracked. I'm good at that. Now, when the Sabbath was passed, Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James, and Salome brought spices that they might come and anoint him. Very early in the morning on the first day of the week, they came to the tomb. Then the sun had risen, and they said amongst themselves, "Who will roll away the stone from the door of the tomb for us?" But when they looked up, they saw that the stone had been rolled away, for it was very large. Uh, and entering the tomb, they saw the young man clothed in a long white robe sitting on the right side, and they were alarmed. But he said to them, "Do not be alarmed. You seek Jesus of Nazareth, who was crucified. He is risen. He is not here. See the place where they lay him. But go, tell his disciples and Peter that he is going before you into Galilee. There you will see him as he said you would." So they went out quickly and fled the tomb, for they were trembling and were amazed, and they said nothing to anyone, for they were afraid. And that's the end of that. That's the end in the earliest of the um, Gospels, or the Gospel of Mark, the earliest texts. So, of course, we know that this came about later here. Um, so this is in the text now, but some of them, like I said, have taken it out, and some of them put it in the footnotes or put it in parentheses or something. Mary Magdalene sees the risen Lord. Now that's the titles are always made put in there later. uh, Now when he rose early on the first day of the week, he appeared first to Mary Magdalene, out of whom he had cast seven demons. She went and told those who had been with him. And see, that tells me it's a later addition too, because this idea that Mary Magdalene is the prostitute and all these other things is kind of a later thing, because she probably wasn't, and she may have been a little more to Jesus than just um, a disciple. I mean, she's anointing his naked body with Jesus's mother. Know anything about Judaism in the first century? It wouldn't happen. Anyway, so now if she was his wife, that would be different. Okay. So anyway, she went and told those who had been with him, as they mourned and wept. And when they heard he was alive and had been seen by her, they did not believe. Then Jesus appears to two disciples. After that, he appears to in another form to two disciples as they were walking and went into the country. And they went and told it to the rest, but they did not believe them either. The Great Commission. Later, he appeared to the 11 as they sat at the table, and he rebuked their unbelief and hardened a hardness of heart, because they did not believe those who had seen him after he had risen. Um, and he said to them, "Go into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature. He who believes and is baptized will be saved, but he who does not believe will be condemned, and the signs will follow." So it just goes on and on. So it's like, there's all this other stuff added, all this religious stuff kind of. This is, but okay. There's a lot of different um, reasons or excuses that people are giving. So there's multiple theories about the endings. One of them is that the original ending was lost. Some suggest that Mark originally included more material, and that the early gospel had been ripped or got wet or something. Who knows? Somebody spilled a coffee on it or whatever. No, they didn't have coffee. Um, and then some scribe later tried to fill it back in. Others say that uh, another possibility is the gospel writer, traditionally Mark, but obviously none of them were signed, ended abruptly with verse 8, intending to create a dramatic closure that points to the resurrection, inviting readers to continue the story. But um, I guess he died or something, and it didn't happen, or who knows? So he somehow abruptly stopped, and what so. And then others believe a third explanation, of course, is that the longer ending was initially a liturgical or devotional reading added to fill out resurrection details over time. It may have been copied into the manuscript as though part of the original text, or it might have been inserted in there to. Now this is me. It might have been inserted in there to match the other gospels later on down the road when they were putting together um, the church. There was a lot of things that were like that. So we don't know for sure. We don't know why. But the point here is that this is just a um, an example of how the Bible has changed over the years. So anyone who says that it hasn't is not correct on that. And that's what the show's about, is to show that things were changed. And what was the original? I want to get to the original text. I want to know what stay down. I want to know what was originally said, or the closest to. Anyway, that's going to be it for today. That's the little ending of Gospel of Mark thing that's actually very well known. But we just had to talk about it here today as a kind of an opening, even though I did my favorite thing on the opening. But there'll be more like this, and like I alluded to other stuff in there. I mean, every time I go into a a part of the Bible, those things pop up. It's like, oh yeah, I'll be reading about something else, and I'll go, oh yeah, there's this too. I got to address this issue. So we'll try to get to a lot of those. And that's it for today. Have a good day.